in some of the places where these extremists are going to be going to try to intimidate people, they might find that they don't want to do that because of the legal ramifications. We've got the DA Larry Krasner of Philadelphia, who had this to say about those who might try to show up and mess with people's voting rights.
Mr. Krasner, great to have you. What does that mean? I've got something for you.
That means I got a jail cell and I got criminal charges, and you can stand in front of a Philadelphia jury, which, by the way, is a diverse jury, and you can explain why you thought it was okay to come to Philly and steal our votes. This is the birthplace of democracy. We are not doing this. Wannabe fascists, stay home. And if your idea of how to have a democratic election is to steal it, then I got something for you.
So look, he's going on the in the media to let people know that this is going on, but it's not just a PR thing. They've got this group of more than 90 city prosecutors and detectives that are going to be watching to take care of these situations when they pop up. Because the idea that someone could try to shut down one of these locations or try to scare people out of a line is obviously unacceptable. We know that Philadelphia is probably going to be ground zero for that effort. For fairly obvious reasons, and so I'm glad that the Krasner there is taking it seriously.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I like hearing tough talk from people who want to defend people's rights, especially the right to vote in this incredibly important election. But what I also think is interesting is how Trump really thought that all the different ways in which he's been trying to disenfranchise voters would give him the edge in this election. But some reporting indicates that he discouraged a lot of people who want to vote for him from casting their ballots early, like through mail-in voting. Yeah. And so a lot of those people are either going to try to show up today, and they might be met with individuals trying to intimidate them in the line, because how do you know who they're voting for, right? Or there might be some issues with them, not voting in time. I'm just very curious to see how it all plays out. But as always, I mean, I feel like people get mad at me when I say this, but it's just how I feel. This is not really based in like data. I'm nervous, I'm nervous about today. Yeah. I'm nervous about today, and more importantly, I'm nervous about what follows the polls closing, right? Other than the election results, like how are people gonna react to it? There's a lot of fear about violence. And I was teaching yesterday after the main show, and I just told my students, I just gave them tips on how to stay safe. I'm like, I'm not trying to scare you or anything. If you haven't voted, you should vote, but stay safe, because there is a lot of fear. Like Beverly Hills, for instance, is completely boarded up because they're worried about violence following the election. Yeah, 100%. I want people to stay safe. I also want them to stay sane. And so we are going to be doing whatever legal challenges or whatever come up, we're going to be here. You're not going to have to face that sort of crazy news that can be hard to decipher with only Wolf Blitzer to save you. We will be here for you. Nothing against Wolf, but why him? I don't know why I threw him under the bus. No, except for all the reasons that I threw him under the bus. But anyway, so we're going to be dealing with that, and just bear in mind all day, no matter what happens, we don't know what the result is until we know what the result is. And Trump coming out and declaring victory is not proof that he won. One of the candidates or the other being up big in some states doesn't necessarily mean what it might seem to mean. So just bear that in mind, be calm, don't respond in a knee-jerk fashion. But also, just to give you a little bit more about the effort to make sure that people in Philadelphia are gonna be able to cast their vote. Krasner denounced voter suppression efforts being encouraged by the president. He said that brandishing a firearm in an attempt to menace voters or election workers is dangerous and anti-American behavior, and it will be prosecuted by my office. Last week, he told Trump to keep your Proud Boys, Goon squads, and uncertified poll watchers out of our city. And I'm glad that there's going to be some sort of protection. There are still going to be people, apparently based on journalists from sort of giving their impressions of this poll watching effort from around the country. They had said, you might remember, we're gonna have an army of 50,000 people. It isn't yet looking like that. There was I think on Public Integrity, they had an article sort of speculating about why it might not be turning out the way Trump had expected. And one reason is that it turns out that watching the polls is really, really boring. Yep. Just going there and yelling at people and having way, way more people yell back at you isn't necessarily that much fun. And so it might not be as bad as it seemed like it was going to be, but that doesn't mean there aren't gonna be Boogaloo Boys and Proud Boys and all of that at some places.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.